We're going to talk about all of our sponsors in our intro in just a minute, but I just want to thank Centene in particular for sponsoring today's opening plenary. Really appreciate their support. And without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to NCIL's president, who will be your MC today, Sarah Launderville. Sarah, thanks so much for heading up the session. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Tim. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, great. So hi, everybody, and welcome to NCIL's 2021 annual conference. I'm Sarah Launderville. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a white woman with long brown hair and gray hair, and I'm wearing glasses. I'm also wearing a peach and white shirt and sitting in my home office in front of a printer today. Before we begin, I'd like to ask that we all take a moment to recognize and remember all the people that could not be with us here today. We have lost some dear friends and advocates since we were together last year. We lost Deidre Davis just weeks after she received a Lifetime Achievement Award at last year's conference. And our friend and leader, Ann Holbrook, passed away in December. We have lost hundreds of thousands of disabled friends, family members, and other loved ones during the COVID-19 pandemic, when congregate settings and the status quo laid bare how ugly they truly are. Please join me in a moment of silence to honor the lives of these great leaders and friends. Thank you. We have worked very hard to make this year's virtual conference as engaging and fully accessible as a virtual event can be. Please fill out a conference evaluation to let us know if you have any suggestions for the future. And you can also email conference@ncil.org if you need immediate assistance. The primary hashtag for the conference is hashtag NCIL, N-C-I-L 2021. NCIL's Twitter handle is @NCIL, N-C-I-L advocacy. Use those hashtags when you tweet or post pictures and comments from the conference. And please remember to caption your images and remember to set your post to public if you want NCIL and other conference attendees to see it. You can also tag our Facebook page, National Council on Independent Living. Okay, we have some people to thank for making all of this possible. Our annual conference would simply not be possible without the generosity of our sponsors. We definitely want to thank this year's top sponsors at the Soldier for Justice level, Centene Corporation and Anthem. Thank you. We also want to express our gratitude for other supporters who make NCIL's work and this event possible. Verizon, Pharmaceutical Researchers and Manufacturers of America, Airbnb, Walmart, Whammo, Microsoft, Coca-Cola, Ability 360, Humana, Disability Resource Center Incorporated, Molina Healthcare, TrackPhone Wireless, Democracy Live, Clear to Connect, Booster Fuels, and Mitsubishi Electric America Foundation. Of course, we all also really appreciate the support from you, our attendees, our exhibitors, and our advertisers. Please visit the sponsor page at the virtual exhibit hall and check them out. So it is my great pleasure to introduce Kelly Buckland and to publicly say thank you for the excellent commitment to independent living and NCIL over the past years. Our organization is very grateful for your dedication. Kelly has an impressive list of proud moments over the years of leading, including nearly doubling NCIL's budget to $2 million per year. And now we are in a sound financial position as we move forward. In his time as our director, we worked on reauthorizing of the Rehab Act and established the Independent Living Administration, an accomplishment many thought we could not achieve. We passed through nearly $1 million from NCIL grants and projects to member Centers for Independent Livings and SILCs in grants and subcontract work. We've played a major and decisive role in defeating the efforts to repeal the Affordable Care Act. We established the 5th core service of transition and diversion, increased the independent living annual federal budget by approximately $15 million, obtained $85 million in COVID-19 relief funds for Centers for Independent Living, established an internship program, and substantially increased the participation of youth within NCIL. obtain prominent office space and establish a major presence in the nation's capital, increased staff benefits and brought high turnover rate to almost zero, and so much more. Kelly, we couldn't be more happy that you've chosen this time to retire and give yourself a much needed break. I'd like to invite folks to join me today to thank Kelly for his devotion to Nickel. So I'm suggesting that we use the hashtag #ThankYouKelly, hashtag #ThankYouKelly, for sharing your gratitude, your pictures and stories of Kelly over these years. So I hope later on when we check out our social media, we can see all of the wonderful stories thanking Kelly for his years of dedication. It is my absolute honor to introduce Kelly Buckland.
Wow, thank you, Sarah, for those very kind words. And thank you for all of your service as well. It's been great to work with you as the president. Hello, everybody. I am Kelly Buckland, the former vice president, president, and executive director of Nickel. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a white male who uses a wheelchair, wearing a black cowboy hat and a white Nickel shirt. Hi, I hope all of you are doing very well. As Sarah just kind of outlined, I've been in Nickel leadership for a very long time, and now I'm looking forward to a new chapter in my life. I'm really going to miss my work with Nickel, and but especially I'm going to miss my work working with the hardworking and dedicated Nickel employee family. And they really are like family to me. I'm going to miss them a great deal. My work as your executive director has been one of the greatest honors of my life. And I want to humbly thank all of you for allowing me this honor and for all of your support throughout the years. Nickel and the independent living movement are very dear to me. And I have spent most of my adult life working in and trying to grow our movement and make it better. I'm thankful for the time that I've been able to serve Nickel, and I'm very proud of what we all have accomplished together. Yes, together we have accomplished much, but there are really still substantial challenges ahead of us, and we really need to address the systemic racism in our movement, and I know we can with Reyma in leadership. We need to do this work together, and we need to stay committed. And we need to demand that people with disabilities have a right to live in the community and eliminate the institutional bias and keep people from being sent to congregate settings in the first place. We also need to restore the damage that's been done to our movement by the administration on community living. And we need to continue on our work on increasing the presence and prominence of independent living within the administration, and many other very important issues affecting the rights and independence of people with disabilities. This is a very important transition for Nickel. Nickel's governing board and staff have been working hard to ensure a smooth transition, and they have picked an exceptional leader and advocate for people with disabilities and independent living to be the new executive director. Reyma McCoy Hyten has the skills, the talents, and the knowledge to lead Nickel to become one of the country's leading intersectionality and disability justice organizations. I know that Nickel is going to continue to do great things and continue to be a leader. And I'm excited to see where what the future holds for Nickel. And my retirement doesn't mean that I'm leaving independent living. I look forward to remaining involved as an individual member of Nickel, and I will continue to support Nickel to the best of my abilities. I hope that you will all remain involved in Nickel and support Nickel, and especially support Reyma as she moves Nickel forward in the future. Thank you all, and at this point, I will turn it back to Sarah. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kelly. We really appreciate all that you've done for our movement, and thank you for being here with us today. It's my great pleasure to introduce Reyma McCoy Hyten. She is the former treasurer for Nickel and has been instrumental in engaging the organization as we tackle racial equity issues within Nickel. Additionally, she has provided training and technical assistance to countless stakeholders in independent living throughout the U.S. Prior to her appointment to the Biden-Harris administration as Commissioner for the Administration on Disabilities within the Administration for Community Living, she served for over 5 years as Executive Director of Central Iowa Center for Independent Living, winner of the 2018 City of Des Moines Organization of the Year Award. She is the first openly autistic person to run for state legislature in U.S. history, is an AT&T Humanity of Connection award-winning activist, and speaks regularly about the intersection of race and disability at universities, organizations like the National Association of Social Workers, and corporations like Microsoft. She holds a master's degree in nonprofit administration from Lindenwood University. I've had the absolute great pleasure of working with Reyma over the past 2 years in different roles, and she has helped set a course of change within independent living. It is with great honor and excitement that I introduce our new Executive Director, Reyma McCoy Hyten.
This is Reyma. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Kelly. Folks, my name's Reyma McCoy Hyten, and my pronouns are she and her. I am a light-complected Black woman with large, natural brown hair. I'm wearing tortoiseshell glasses and a one-sleeved pink sweater. And I am seated in front of a beige background. And if you're able to see, there's a cat hiding behind me. I want to thank everyone for joining us today and for the next 2 weeks. This conference is occurring at an especially pivotal moment in history. And NCIL staff have literally been working around the clock to ensure that you have the best experience possible. As you may know, we're working especially hard to fulfill the conference-related duties of several governing board seats that have recently become vacant. We thank you for your patience as we move forward in bold new ways that nevertheless are deeply rooted in the original intent behind the IL movement, confronting the paternalism that's often disguised as professionalism in our spaces and encouraging self-representation, demedicalization, and cross-disability solidarity. I want to begin with the words of Justin Dart Jr. Americans are instinctively concerned about the politics of status quo and retreat. They seek a positive vision for the 21st century, a forward vision that includes all unconditionally, that loves them for their distinctive humanity rather than their TV bodies and personalities and their ad agency lifestyles. We have that vision, the individualized empowerment of all, a society based on the value that every human life is equally sacred and equally worth optimal, personalized empowerment to achieve their best possible quality of life. An America for all, a world for all. You have the power. Make the dream live. The legitimacy of our goal is self-evident. But can we overcome the psychology and the politics of retreat? Can we overcome the forces that invest billions in the maintenance of traditional stereotypes? Not quickly, not easily, but we can win. We have the ultimate powers, people, truth, love. We have you, we have each other. 6 years ago, I didn't know what IL was. I didn't know who Justin Dart was. Like him, I was appointed to a commissioner role in the federal government. He at RSA, and of course me at ACL, but that's a story for another time. 6 years ago, I was the department director for the largest community-based supported employment program in the state of Iowa. And after providing direct services and leading disability programs for over 15 years, as well as earning a hybrid master's degree in business and human services, I was ready for change. Change that was spearheaded by the realization that my childhood dream of effecting change at the societal level through the provision of services and supports to disabled people had not been attained. To the contrary, 6 years ago, I found myself in the position of seeing that, as much as I loathe to admit it, my work was only solidifying the bureaucracy-mired status quo for disabled people. My experiences in human services began on the other side of the table, however, so to speak, because prior to becoming a provider, I was both a consumer and the family member of several people, including both of my parents, who were significantly impacted by disabilities. I learned early. I was diagnosed as autistic in 1986, prior to becoming a ward of the state of California. What bad? And when my mother, who'd spent her life alienated from her father and family, a wealthy investor and philanthropist who'd made a fortune during the formation days of the Silicon Valley, died in a nursing home in 1995, what absolutely terrible services looked like. When my Uncle Calvin, a young Black man who lived with non-apparent and non-diagnosed disabilities, was killed by police in 1988, I learned what the absence of services looks like for so many faceless people who fall through the cracks in our society. And then 6 years ago, IL found me when my supervisor at the time emailed me a job opening that she thought might be of interest to me. Executive Director of Central Iowa Center for Independent Living, an organization notorious in Central Iowa for being a hub of drama and dysfunction. The last I'd heard about CISL was that it was on the verge of closing its doors. "You're impossible to supervise," my then supervisor wrote, "and CISL is impossible to lead. But if anyone can do it, you can. You should apply." I did. I got the job. And on my first day on the job, I walked into the office and found staff in their respective offices with their doors locked. A wide variety of people, many who appeared to be residents of the local shelter, were crowded into the boardroom, drinking coffee and using the CIL computers. I broke up a fist fight in CISL's lobby. I also broke into the bathroom to find someone shooting up in the bathroom. A few days later, the office manager quit without notice, but not before changing the passwords to everything, including payment management system. He did not disclose the updated passwords to anyone before departing. It was September 27th, and we regained access to the system on October 1st, which meant that we were unable to draw down nearly $30,000 in Part C funds. And then I got a phone call from CISL's attorney to provide me with a status update on the lawsuit a former employee had filed against the organization. I had not been informed about this lawsuit during the interview process. Consumer files were outdated, full of inaccuracies, or non-existent. And after my first board meeting, which lasted for 7 hours and included board members, consumers, and residents of the local shelter, crowded into the boardroom, falling asleep, demanding that staff get them coffee, and playing Candy Crush Saga on their phones while I tried to conduct business, I made the decision to close CISL for 2 weeks in order to get files in order, meet with staff to set parameters, gain a situational awareness of CISL's legal situation, and, on the whole, to reset the organization. We reopened our doors in late October of 2015, and after 100% turnover of staff and board, most of whom were very open in informing me that a Black autistic woman didn't have the capacity to lead a CIL, the lawsuit against CISL coming to a favorable conclusion for the organization, and a move of CISL's physical office to a location that would enhance its proximity to our target service area, we won the City of Des Moines Organization of the Year Award 3 years later. In the midst of that, I quietly started attending NCIL's annual conferences. I presented a few times, but mostly hung back and took it all in. My first conference in 2016 rocked my world. I I remember riding down the escalators to the lowest level of the Grand Hyatt in Washington, D.C., and seeing several hundred people, disabled people, in community together. I remember sitting in on sessions and panels and workshops and feeling aghast at the opportunity to experience disabled people speaking about the provision of services and supports, not as consumers, but as providers, as authorities, not just authorities, the authorities. CISL wasn't the only organization of its kind. There were hundreds across the United States. I met with other CIL directors and shared quite a few war stories over lots of drinks in the Cure Bar. It was that got me through the rough patches at CISL, disabled people serving disabled people. I'd found my home, finally. No small feat for a foster kid that aged out of a system that was utterly indifferent to my existence. That said, 2 years ago, none of you knew who the heck I was. And then I shared the stage with Kelly and led a listening session that was meant to get a conversation started about going about the intersection of race and disability in the IL way. Anyhow, today, I join you in the capacity of Executive Director of NCIL. During my tenure on the NCIL board as both treasurer and co-chair of the Anti-Racism and Racial Equity Task Force, I pushed for critical conversations, including the listening session of 2 years ago, regarding the racist, sexist, ableist past of IL. We've seen the racism, the sexism, the ableism, and even the homophobia play out very recently in response to my assuming this role in a variety of ways. And I'm happy to dialogue about that further to the best of my ability during my meet and greet on Thursday afternoon. But as a person who single-handedly transformed one of the most dysfunctional CILs in the United States into an award-winning and respected human services provider, I come to this position with a lot of hope for NCIL as an organization. A lot of hope for member CILs and CILCs as vehicles for change in your respective service areas and states, and a lot of hope for IL as an overall movement. That said, I said it on stage 2 years ago, and I'll say it again now. We can't move forward without critically assessing how our past impedes progress today. I don't want to belabor those still pertinent points at this time, however. I want to begin to talk about NCIL's role in creating a tomorrow for IL. I say begin because this is a conversation that's ongoing. With that in mind, I'd like to posit that under my leadership, NCIL can and should and will do many things, including, but not limited to the following: intentionally and effectively becoming a cultural change agent, both within the disability community and in society as a whole, developing a brand as ubiquitous in our society's consciousness as the NAACP and AARP. Developing an equal, at least, footing with the member organizations that represent the DD councils, the P&As, and the USEDs in the eyes of our federal funder. Revitalizing the regional rep positions to create value-added support for members that further nurtures the network of activists for IL that spans the United States and its territories. Leading conversations regarding the evolution of IL, including introducing IL to promising practices such as mutual aid and other innovative peer-led service delivery models. As both an organization and a cultural agent, ensuring that our spaces are free from harassment, manipulation, whisper campaigns, overwork, bigotry, and other abusive power dynamics within any of its operations, including board, committees, and personnel functions. Folks, we can't free our people and be mired in the muck of drama at the same time. But to be clear, speaking out about experiencing abuse in IL spaces isn't creating drama. Refusing to hear and outright punishing people for speaking truth to power, in addition to being abusive in and of itself, is becoming a leading voice and resource of guidance on intersectionality and disability spaces, and in society at large. I've been fortunate during my first 3 weeks as executive director of NCIL to secure a 6-figure grant to support the organization to begin doing this work. I'd encourage you to attend my workshop, God Implicit Bias, next Thursday for an introductory grounding in how I work at the intersection of race and disability. And finally, NCIL, cognizant of the succession and leadership crisis IL is currently presented with, taking the lead with nurturing and mentoring emerging leaders to step into decision-making roles throughout the IL network and ending the absence of young talent in our spaces. To be clear, there is a big difference between mentoring and indoctrinating. The consequence of not engaging with this work soon will be that people who are not literate in IL, including people who are not even disabled, assuming decision-making roles in IL, thus further pushing IL away from its original intended purpose, assuring that disabled people are at the helm of liberating disabled people. That said, it's essential that those of us who are over the age of 40, and I am over the age of 40 myself, by the way, recognize that we too would benefit from mentorship from people who are under the age of 40. Institutional knowledge is priceless. The fight for disability rights that began 2 generations ago has been transformational. Ingenuity is priceless. The recognition that rights often miss entire populations of people, and that it's time to center our work around disability justice is actually an essential part of the transformation that began 2 generations ago. Many skill sets, many vantage points, one goal: prepare the way for the next phase of the transformation, disability liberation. In closing, NCIL has always been driven by the wisdom of disabled people. That cannot change. We further affirm that commitment by ensuring that those doing the leading represent the full spectrum of the disability community, including Black and other racially marginalized disabled people, gender diverse disabled people, religiously and irreligiously disabled people, diverse disabled people, intellectually, cognitively, and developmentally disabled people who experience chronic pain, environmental sensitivities, mental illness, and other non-apparent disabilities, disabled people who are trapped in institutional settings, and prison is an institutional setting, and disabled people who don't even realize that they are disabled, and as a result, struggle in a society not equipped to offer them the space to understand themselves and live independently. Disabled people like my father, a Black man, who was never formally diagnosed as autistic, and as a result, never participated in services and supports as a child or an adult. He spent my childhood in and out of jail and shelters, and I'd go years without hearing from him. I haven't heard from him since 2018, when a friend of his found me on Facebook. I was able to finally tell him that I was a parent and he a grandfather during the one call that I had with him. He was living in a halfway house at the time. Recently, my father's friend called me to tell me that he hadn't heard from my dad in a year. Lots of folks like your dad kind of fell off the radar after COVID hit, he said. He paused. I paused. I'm glad you got to talk to him a few years ago, though, he said. I have no way of knowing what's happened to my father, and as tragic as that is for both myself as his daughter and for my own daughter as his grandchild, the real tragedy here is that my father's story and how his story shapes mine is not at all unique for multiply marginalized disabled people like my father and me. Can your SIL effectively serve people like my father? Will you allow people like me to speak with authority without punishing us? Can IL provide the tools needed to change a society that perpetuates the punishment of multiply marginalized, especially racially marginalized, disabled people for simply existing in a way that challenges the status quo? Returning to Justin Dart. Colleagues, you have the power and therefore the responsibility to defend democracy and to create a society of individualized empowerment for all, because you are the society. Society is not a magical super god that can give or withhold quality of life. Society is nothing more than what you do and think every day. When you speak, society speaks. When you change, society changes. Nickel came into existence to fight for social change. In order to do that, it must be willing to change too. The change starts with you, with us. And so I leave you with the words of Amy Hyten, Secretary for the Nickel Board of Directors, words that you may recall reading in your conference materials. Liberty, independence, freedom, and equity represent the pillars of the work we must do. We will fight for the liberty of disabled people incarcerated in institutions, including nursing homes, psychiatric institutions, intermediate care facilities, jails and prisons, and other congregate settings. We will fight for the independence and freedom of disabled people to lead our own lives. We will fight for equity in all that we do to achieve a more just, anti-racist, and equitable society and independent living movement. This is our agenda. Join us. Without all of us. Thank you, and see you on Thursday. Until then, please enjoy your conference.
Reyma, it's so hard to not be in a room filled with everybody to be able to clap and cheer for what you just did for us. Thank you for your words, your commitment, and your forward vision. We're excited that IL found you. Thank you for engaging and moving beyond the status quo for disabled people. Your experiences, your commitment, and your love for independent living is powerful. And it's also exciting. As you said, we have the power and responsibility to make the changes you are calling us to do. And I look forward to that work. Thank you for your speech today. I hope everyone enjoys our Nickel virtual conference. We've done the best we can to create an accessible virtual event with excellent workshops, presentations, and even a virtual rally and day on the Hill. And we're here to help if you need some support. So I'm going to invite folks to join us for the Nickel Legislative and Advocacy Committee featured workshop at 1:30 p.m. Eastern today. The links and phone numbers to join are on your conference website. Thank you all so much, and we hope you have a wonderful conference.
So that concludes the opening plenary. Thanks so much for joining you all. Here are a few minutes extra in your break. And as Sarah said, we will reconvene at 1:30 Eastern for the LNA featured workshop. Thanks so much. Bye.